Chosen one, stop right now. Because what you are about to hear is not an ordinary word of comfort for a tired day. This is a sacred signal sent at the exact moment your soul was almost ready to let go. Archangel Michael says, "Congratulations, a shocking package is coming to you. Not by luck, not by coincidence, but by the hand of God, who has been moving silently behind doors your eyes have not yet seen. You have wondered why everything stayed quiet for so long, why your prayers seemed to fall into empty space, why people who promised to stay walked away when you were weakest, and why the door you kept knocking on remained closed before you. But chosen one, listen carefully that silence was not the end. It was the holy pause before heaven gave the command for the gate to open. For the next 30 minutes, silence the noise of the world. Lay down every anxious thought and stop allowing outside voices to decide your worth. Because God is calling you into a moment you cannot afford to miss. There is a package with your name on it, a divine delivery sealed for the appointed time. And what is inside will touch the exact place where you have been most wounded, most exhausted, and most tempted to doubt. This is not only a blessing, this is the sacred sign that the old season is losing its power over you. The delays that made you cry in silence, the battles that made you question yourself, the nights when you prayed through tears and no one knew. All of it is being gathered under a greater design. God has not forgotten your address. He has not overlooked your name. He has not allowed your tears to fall to the ground without an answer from heaven. And before this video ends, I will reveal to you one important secret why this package was held back until this exact moment, and why you must be ready before the divine door fully opens. If this message is already touching your spirit, comment, "I receive my divine package." Like this video, subscribe to this channel, and share it with someone who has also been waiting on God in silence. Because the next part will show you why the battle became so intense right before the blessing was placed into your hands. The battle did not become intense because heaven abandoned you. It became intense because the delivery was getting close. Something shifted around you before you could explain it. The pressure grew heavier. The nights felt longer. The silence felt sharper. And even small things began to feel like warfare against your peace. You may have noticed sudden resistance in places that used to feel simple. Conversations became draining. Doors delayed without reason. Your mind replayed old fears. Your body felt tired even after rest. And somewhere deep inside, you wondered why everything seemed to rise against you right when you were trying to believe again. But listen carefully, this was not proof that the promise was dying. It was evidence that something with weight, value, and destiny was approaching your life. The enemy does not fight empty ground. Darkness does not gather around a life that carries nothing. The storm was not random, it was a signal. The pressure was not meaningless. It was a warning that your threshold was near. Scripture reminds us that our struggle is not merely against flesh and blood. And that truth explains why some battles could not be understood by logic alone. You were not only fighting disappointment, you were resisting the voice that told you to give up before the royal package reached your hands. Archangel Michael says, "The obstruction was real, but it was not final." Every attack that tried to confuse you, every delay that tried to exhaust you, every person who misunderstood your silence, and every shadow that tried to make you question God's timing has already been measured under divine authority. You are still covered. You are still being guided. You are still standing because heaven has not released its hold on you. C. Is ridden. Lewis often pointed toward a deep truth of the Christian life. Human strength collapses when it tries to carry eternity without God. That is why this season felt too heavy for your own hands. You were never meant to fight this battle by pride, performance, or panic. You were meant to stand in spiritual armor, with faith in your heart and surrender in your breath, while God moved what you could not move. So do not misread the storm. Do not call yourself weak because you felt the fire. Fire does not only destroy in the hands of God, it refines. The darkness came close, but it could not claim you. The arrows were released, but they could not cancel the blueprint. The gate was guarded, but not closed forever. Before we go deeper, comment, "The battle is not my ending," and stay with this message, because the next part will reveal why your delay was not denial, and why God made you wait before placing the promise in your hands. There is a kind of waiting that feels like punishment until God opens your eyes and shows you what He was protecting. You thought the delay meant heaven was silent, but there were things growing beneath the surface that would have been destroyed if they had been exposed too early. A seed does not accuse the soil while it is buried. It does not understand the darkness, the pressure, the hiddenness, or the long season where nothing above ground seems to change. Yet, in that unseen place, roots are learning how to hold what the branches will one day carry. That is what happened to you. You were not being ignored. You were being rooted. You were not being passed over. You were being prepared in places applause could not reach. God did not allow every door to open when you first knocked, because some rooms would have celebrated your gift while slowly draining your spirit. Some opportunities would have looked like answers, but carried chains inside them. Some people would have stood beside your success, but secretly resisted your calling. So the Lord held back what you wanted, not because He was cruel, but because His timing was carrying mercy you could not yet recognize. This is why the wilderness felt so lonely. It was not empty. It was sacred. It was the place where false dependence broke, where your prayers became more honest, where your heart stopped begging for human approval and began listening for the voice of the shepherd again. The furnace did not burn you to ashes. It revealed what in you could not be destroyed. The waiting did not erase your destiny. It removed the version of you that would have mishandled it. C is red. Lewis often carried this deep understanding through his writings. God is not merely trying to make life easier for the soul. He is drawing the soul back into truth, back into surrender, back into the only place where peace can survive the storm. And now you are beginning to see it. The closed door was not a curse. The slow answer was not rejection. The hidden years were not wasted pages. They were part of the grand design. Every tear taught you discernment. Every betrayal sharpened your hearing. Every unanswered season made your faith less dependent on what you could see. And now, the appointed time is pressing closer. The package could not come while your hands were still trembling from the old fear. The blessing could not be released while your identity was still tied to those who underestimated you. God was not just preparing the promise for you, He was preparing you for the promise. Before this message ends, there will be a simple prophetic act of surrender. One sacred moment where you will place the old season before God and open your heart to what He is releasing. But first, you need to know what is actually inside this royal package. Because what heaven has prepared is far greater than what you first asked for. What is inside this royal package is not small, and it is not ordinary. It is not merely one answered prayer, one open door, one unexpected message, or one moment of relief after a long season of pressure. This package carries layers. It carries restoration for the places where you learn to smile while bleeding. It carries provision for the needs you stopped talking about because you were tired of explaining your struggle. It carries healing for the wounds that became part of your daily language. Even when nobody around you noticed how much strength it took to keep going, God is not sending you something shallow. He is sending something weighty, something marked by divine timing, something prepared with your history in mind. You asked for a way out, but heaven prepared a way forward. You asked for enough strength to survive, but God prepared a season where you would begin to live again. You asked for one door to open, but the Lord has been arranging a corridor of doors, each one leading you closer to the destiny He wrote before people ever had an opinion about you. This royal package holds divine provision, but also divine clarity. It holds new connections, but also the courage to leave old attachments behind. It holds visible breakthrough, but also a deeper peace that cannot be explained by circumstances. Isaiah speaks of God doing a new thing, making a way in the wilderness and rivers in the desert. And that is the image over your life right now. Dry places beginning to flow, barren places beginning to bloom, silent places beginning to answer. The floodgates are not opening because you forced them. They are opening because the appointed time has arrived. Archangel Michael says, "What has been sealed for you cannot be stolen by those who never understood your calling." The blessing is not wandering. It knows your name. It knows the address of your obedience, the location of your tears, the secret room where you kept praying when your voice was weak. This is why you must not reduce the package to material things only. Yes, there may be resources. Yes, there may be opportunity. Yes, there may be a sudden turnaround that shifts the visible condition of your life. But the greater gift is this: God is restoring your ability to believe again without fear, controlling the conversation. If you believe this package carries more than you first asked for, comment "It is mine by God's timing." Like this video so this message can reach another soul standing at the same threshold. Because there is one reason this package could not be released while certain chains were still around you. There is a reason the old chains had to break before this new door could open. God will not place a royal inheritance into hands that are still tied to the fear of the last season. He will not ask you to step into a kingdom assignment while your heart is still begging for permission from people who never understood your calling. Some things had to fall away. Some voices had to lose access. Some familiar places had to become uncomfortable. Not because you were being punished, but because heaven was separating you from what could no longer carry your future. You may have called it rejection, but God called it protection. You may have called it loss, but heaven called it release. There were chains around your thoughts, chains around your confidence, chains around your obedience, chains made from shame, disappointment, old labels, and the memory of what people said when they could not see what God had placed inside you. Those chains were subtle. They did not always look like bondage. Sometimes they looked like loyalty to people who drained you. Sometimes they looked like staying small so others would not feel threatened. Sometimes they looked like apologizing for the light God Himself placed upon your life. But now, the old season is losing its grip. The prison door is opening, and you are being asked to walk out without turning back to ask the darkness if it approves of your freedom. See, so Lewis often warned through his Christian imagination that the human heart can cling to lesser comforts simply because it is afraid of the greater joy God is offering. That is what this moment is exposing. You cannot carry yesterday's fear into tomorrow's promise. You cannot step through a divine door while dragging the chains of the wilderness behind you. The package is not being delayed because God is unwilling. It is being prepared to meet the version of you that has finally stopped agreeing with defeat. Let the chains fall. Let the false identity break. Let the old voices become background noise. Your hands must be open. Your heart must be surrendered. And your spirit must be free enough to receive what heaven is placing before you. And when the chains break, the signs begin to appear. The signs are not small when heaven begins to move. They only appear small to the eye that has been trained by pain to expect disappointment. Pay attention now, because this is serious. When God begins to shift a life, He does not always announce it with thunder first. Sometimes the first sacred signal is a strange peace in the very place where panic used to rule you. Sometimes it is one message arriving at the exact hour your faith was about to collapse. Sometimes it is a door closing with such finality that your flesh grieves. But your spirit quietly knows it has been rescued. Do not ignore these signs. Do not dismiss them as ordinary. The kingdom often moves in whispers before it moves in visible power. You may begin to notice conversations ending, burdens lifting, opportunities appearing without manipulation, and resources coming from directions you did not plan. You may feel your desire changing, your tolerance for darkness weakening, your appetite for the old life disappearing. That is not confusion. That is separation. That is the divine hand pulling you out of a place that can no longer hold your assignment. This is where the matter becomes urgent if you keep treating sacred signals like random events. You may delay your own obedience. God may send the key. But you must be awake enough to recognize the door. The package is coming, but the careless heart can stand beside a miracle and still call it coincidence. Do not do that. Not now. Not at this threshold. There are moments in a person's life when heaven gives warnings, confirmations, and openings so precise that ignoring them becomes dangerous to destiny. This is one of those moments. The peace you feel after letting go is a sign. The discomfort you feel around what once entertained you is a sign. The sudden courage rising in your chest is a sign. The unexpected connection, the repeated confirmation, the dream that will not leave you, the inner pull toward prayer, the door that opens without begging. These are not accidents scattered across your week. They are pieces of a blueprint coming together. Light is entering places where darkness once negotiated with your fear. The gate is not far. The key is turning. The atmosphere around your life is changing. But the greatest sign is not outside you. The greatest sign begins when God changes how you stand inside the storm. The package may be on its way, but your heart must be ready to receive what your hands have been praying for. This is where many people miss the moment. They ask God for breakthrough, but when the door begins to open, fear whispers. What if I am not ready? What if I lose it? What if this is too much for me? And suddenly, the same soul that cried for freedom begins reaching back toward familiar chains, because bondage can feel safer than responsibility when you have lived too long in survival mode. But this is not the hour to shrink. This is not the hour to negotiate with panic. God did not carry you through storms, fire, betrayal, silence, and wilderness just for you to stand at the threshold and let fear speak louder than faith. The inner shift must happen now, not later. Now, You must move from fearful waiting into holy readiness. Holy readiness does not mean you understand everything. It means your heart has stopped demanding every detail before it obeys. It means you can say, "Lord, I do not see the full blueprint, but I trust the hand that is holding it." Proverbs tells us to trust in the Lord with all our heart and not lean on our own understanding. And this word is not gentle decoration for your wall. It is a command for the doorway you are standing in. Your understanding may still be trembling, but your spirit can still surrender. Your emotions may still remember the last disappointment, but your faith can still rise above the memory. C. Isno. Lewis, in the spirit of his Christian writings, reminds us that peace cannot survive when the soul tries to live apart from God. That is why control has exhausted you. That is why overthinking has drained you. That is why trying to predict every outcome has stolen the strength you needed for today. God is not asking you to carry the future. He is asking you to entrust it to Him. Open your hands. Let the old fear fall from your grip. Let your heart become an altar again. Let the fire that once frightened you become the light that leads you forward. Archangel Michael says, "Readiness is not perfection. Readiness is surrender." You are allowed to feel the weight of the moment, but you are not allowed to bow to fear as if fear were your master. If your spirit is saying yes, "Come on, Lord, make me ready," subscribe if this message is strengthening your faith, and share it with someone who is trying to trust God through uncertainty. Because now we are approaching the sacred act that will seal your agreement with what heaven is releasing. Do not only listen to this message, respond to it. There are moments when faith must move from your thoughts into your body, from agreement in your mind into surrender before God. This is one of those moments. Before the final secret is revealed, you are being invited into a simple sacred practice called the 3-minute royal surrender. It is not complicated. It is not religious performance. It is not about impressing heaven with perfect words. It is about placing the old season before the Lord and opening your spirit to receive only what comes from His hand. When this video ends, find a quiet place. Turn away from the noise. Place one hand over your heart as a sign that you are giving God access to the place where fear has been speaking. Then open your other hand in front of you, as if you are no longer grabbing, forcing, chasing, or begging, but receiving with trust. For 3 minutes, breathe slowly and say this prayer aloud. Father, I surrender the old season. I release fear, delay, confusion, and every false burden I was never meant to carry. If this door is from you, prepare my heart to walk through it with humility, wisdom, courage, and faith. I receive only what comes from your hand. I reject every counterfeit blessing, every voice of fear, and every chain from the past. In Jesus' name, Amen. Do not rush those words. Let them pass through the places in you that have been tired, guarded, and afraid to hope again. After you pray, take a piece of paper and write one sentence. I will not sabotage what God has prepared for me. Keep it somewhere you can see it, because the next season will require remembrance. When fear rises, read it again. When doubt returns, read it again. When the old version of you wants to run back to what God delivered you from, read it again. This is your declaration that you are not entering the divine door with closed hands and a divided heart. You are surrendering the old weight. You are making room for the royal package. You are telling heaven, Lord, I am ready to receive with clean hands and a faithful heart. But before the final secret is revealed, you must understand why certain people could not enter this next chapter with you. Some people could not enter this next chapter with you, and that truth may hurt before it heals. You may still wonder why certain connections broke so suddenly, why conversations became cold, why support disappeared, why the ones who once stood near you seemed unable to recognize what God was doing in you. But listen, with a sober heart, not every separation was an attack. Some separations were divine protection wearing the face of loss. Some people loved the version of you that needed them, but they could not handle the version of you that would finally obey God without asking for permission. Some were comfortable with your struggle because your weakness made them feel important. Some were willing to walk with you in the wilderness, but only if you stayed wounded enough to remain familiar. That is why heaven had to make space before the package arrived. A royal delivery cannot be placed in an environment that keeps negotiating with darkness. A kingdom assignment cannot be carried into rooms where your calling is mocked, drained, or quietly resisted. God is not being cruel by removing access. He is guarding what he has marked. You may have called it abandonment, but heaven called it alignment. You may have called it heartbreak, but the throne called it cleansing. There are doors ahead that require peace, discernment, and holy focus. And not everyone from the old season can stand beside you without contaminating your courage. This is not a reason to hate them. This is not permission to become bitter. It is a summons to release them into God's hands and stop dragging yesterday's attachments into tomorrow's promise. See, this is our. Lewis often carried the idea that the soul must let go of lesser things to receive the deeper joy God is offering. And that truth is standing at the center of this moment. What left your life did not empty you, it made room. What broke away did not destroy your future. It uncovered the path. The bridge closing behind you is not always a curse. Sometimes it is mercy, preventing you from returning to a place that could no longer hold your destiny. So bless what must go. Forgive what wounded you, and walk forward without turning your freedom into regret. The narrow gate is before you. The light is separating from the darkness. And now comes the final secret, promised at the beginning, the reason the package is arriving now. Heaven was not only preparing the package, heaven was preparing your yes. The blessing could have arrived earlier and still found you afraid of it. The door could have opened sooner and still found your feet frozen at the threshold. God knew that if he placed a royal inheritance into the hands of a wounded identity, you might call it too much, run from it, or hand it back to fear. So he waited with mercy. He waited while your discernment sharpened. He waited while false voices lost their power. He waited while the old version of you, the one trained by disappointment to expect loss, slowly learned how to trust again. This was never about delay alone. This was about alignment. The package is arriving now because something inside you is no longer bowing to the lie that you are forgotten. Something in your spirit is rising with a different sound. You are not begging from outside the gate anymore. You are standing as one called by God, marked by grace, and summoned into a new chapter. Archangel Michael says, "The royal delivery has crossed the line of obstruction, and what God has released cannot be dragged back into darkness." Let that strike your heart with holy seriousness. The next season will not be carried by panic. It will not be protected by overthinking. It will not be entered by clinging to the chains God already broke. It will be entered by agreement with God's timing. Agreement with his promise. Agreement with the truth that your past pain does not have final authority over your future. Restoration is not far away. Provision is not wandering. Clarity is not lost. The divine door is opening, and the key is not in the hands of your enemies, your critics, or your old fear. The key is in surrender. So before you leave this message, do not just feel inspired. Respond. Comment "I agree with God's promise." Like this video. Subscribe to this channel and share it with someone whose faith has been tired but not dead. Then do the 3-minute royal surrender. Because this moment deserves more than emotion. It deserves obedience. Your name has not been erased. Your prayers have not been buried. Your tears have not been ignored. Silence the noise. Open your hands. Step through the door. God is speaking right now, and the package with your name on it is closer than ever.